Over the last decade, the track record of American republics has been bleak. States like Gran Colombia in recent years have collapsed, fracturing along ethnic lines. And states like Central America are beginning to collapse, with predictions showing that they will not survive until 1840. And this is being seen across North and South America. The only somewhat stable countries are the United States and Brazil, and only one of them is not at war with itself. And Mexico is no different. Ever since independence in 1821, our state has been a hotbed of revolutions and political instability. Just last year, we experienced a revolution bringing to power an interim government who has promised to hold elections but has never set a date. As for right now, more pressing matters are on the horizon. Our northern territory of Texas is in open rebellion against the central government. Because of this, we plan to send reinforcements to finally crush this rebellion once and for all. But when we win against these rebels, the future for Mexico will be unclear. The United States of America is becoming a global giant, and it will soon eclipse us in military and industrial might. And as they expand westward, our territories of Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, and California could be up for grabs. And at this moment, we barely have the military capacity to hold on to our expanding republic. And making the situation even worse, the Mexican economy is stagnant. There is barely any industry in Mexico. And though you'd imagine that Mexico would be prime real estate for farms and plantations, though it is, no one has decided to exploit this benefit of ours. The only nations that we are on par with are nations like China, the Japanese shogunate, and Portugal. But for now, the economy has to be the least of our concerns. We need to crush this rebellion and secure Mexico, as the threat of a counter-revolution or a coup d'etat is scarily high, and the fact that Mexico will survive the next decade is less than guaranteed. In the months following the war against Texas, a solution for our northern territories has been decided by the interim government. Though this may come to nip us in the butt eventually, we will give our territories greater autonomy within Mexico, giving them the right to self-govern, so we can prioritize on the homeland. Though we will not start going around and establishing these new regional governments willy-nilly, in places like Texas, we need to reintegrate and prepare them for civilian rule. And in states like New Mexico and Colorado, who are merely just territories, we need to wait until they can become full states of Mexico before giving them the same treatment as areas like California. Along with these governmental plans, the interim government has also announced a small building project to construct the first universities in Mexico City and in the states bordering the Rio Grande. As one of our pressing matters is the fact that our literacy rate is just above 20%. Along with that, we have sent diplomatic missions to the United Kingdom, France, and Russia in order to find allies in this uncertain world. But for now, the focus must be on Mexico. For now, we have prevented any form of a counter-revolution. Rumors of a coup have begun circling about. In a matter of 1 month, our government has changed 2 separate times. The interim government stepped down, announcing a new Mexican republic, and finally set a deadline for the elections. But the interim president was overthrown in the coup we preluded to earlier, pushing back the deadline for the elections as it was announced a new Mexican republic was established. This has caused major outrage across the entire country, with people taking to the streets ordering for the elections to happen now so they can gain control of their future. Though the protests have remained peaceful for now, the chance that they might escalate either from the government or the protesters is still unknown. But a new rising concern is the debt crisis. When the first new Mexican republic was established, they began massive building projects to invest in light industry in Mexico City, and finally began exploiting our arable land. But because of that, the debt that we have started to accumulate is becoming a problem. And moreover, this interim government has started investing more and more into the northern territories. south of the Rio Grande, which at this moment should be the least of the government's concerns. However, at this moment, Mexico is stable, but for how long, no one knows. And now that elections have finally transpired, the Liberal government was voted into power, and their agenda was not to expand Mexico's borders, but to ensure Mexico survives. Of that, they have already attempted to pass several bills, such as laissez-faire economics, some degree of women's rights, the right of assembly, and the separation between church and state. Though the Conservative Party is staunchly against these reforms, but for now the Liberal government has an outright majority in the Mexican Congress. So for the time being, these new reforms seem to be set as not potential, but inevitable. But concerns are raising about the amount of debt the new government is incurring in order to build universities, government administrations, and reshifting focus from southern farms to northern farms, when central Mexico needs urgent development. Though the Mexican government said that they will not cancel the previous government's building projects in Mexico City, the people are slowly becoming untrustworthy of this new liberal government. A few years later, the Liberal government did not fully deliver on their promises. Though they were able to separate the church and the state, and enacting laissez-faire economics, things like the right of assembly and women's rights were unable to be passed. And the government's building projects have been taking longer and longer than expected and costing more and more. Because of that, when the next elections were held, the Conservative Party won, not necessarily with an outright majority, but close enough. However, the Liberal government is refusing to transfer power over to them, because in these recent years, they've been talking about open rebellion against the Liberal government. Because of this, Mexico is teetering on the edge of another revolution and a potential civil war, and our efforts to procure allies in Europe have failed miserably. Britain is refusing to sign any form of an alliance, same with France, and Russia turned away our envoys before they could even land. And as we are trying to figure out the direction of our country, the United States openly declared claims on our territories north of the Rio Grande. At this moment, the future for Mexico is bleak, but the government has a plan. If you win a war, the people will support you. And with the recent collapse, Republic of Central America, it's given us an opportunity to expand Mexico's border south and forming a buffer state between us and South America. As the expansion began, we did not have to worry about a potential revolution, but instead of a coup. And because of that, the Liberal government has been forced out of power, with the trade unions forming an interim government until the next elections, which will be held in 3 months. Because of that, the people are becoming even more angry. No government has delivered on their promise for stabilizing and bringing economic development to Mexico. And now this is the 5th time an unlawful change in government has occurred. Though the elections mean that the current government won't stay in power for very long, the people are still wondering what Mexico will truly look like by the end of the decade, if the state even survives at all. A few years later, after the second Liberal government has been voted out of power, the Americans came to us with a demand to transfer all territory north of the Rio Grande. This is catastrophic. America has become several times stronger than us while we were merely trying to keep ourselves together. We by no means have the military capability to hold the North, but we cannot roll over to these Yankees. We will defend Mexico and send these gringos running back to DC by any means necessary. With an American victory in the Mexican-American War, the state has fully collapsed. America annexed all of our territories north of the Rio Grande, except for California and Nevada, which has declared independence and seized Baja California. In the Northeast, The Republic of the Rio Grande declared independence and seceded from the nation. Same with the Maya in the south. Mexico is a shell of its former self, barely holding itself together. Because of this, we need a miracle to turn to, or we risk falling deeper and deeper. Several years later, after the Mexican-American War, Mexico has stagnated. The economy has barely developed, the military is in shambles, resource shortages have become common across the entire nation, and the nation's debt crisis has gotten worse and worse. But a coup has recently transpired, bringing to power a new government, and this government's focus is to reunite Mexico. We will never be able to fight the Americans for our former territories, but the Maya, Rio Grande, and chunks of California are up for grabs. Even invasions into Central America are being planned. Though the Mexican economy is absolutely floundering, the unity of the nation must be secured. About 3 years later, after the new Mexican government came to power, the homeland of Mexico has been fully united, with regions such as Baja California even being able to be reintegrated. And in the background of all these wars, the government has enacted building projects, not necessarily to develop Mexico's economy, but to increase plantations north of Mexico City. However, these construction projects will not be completed until 1860, and people are demanding that the government focus on light industry instead of plantations. However, the government has ignored these requests, and instead is focusing on the invasion and conquest of Central America. As we began expanding into Central America, the government incurred so much debt while trying to invade Honduras. We are now officially in default. We are unable to continue our building projects, and any future wars are impossible with the current state of Mexico. And because of these recent government failures, a revolution transpired in Mexico City, bringing the end to this Mexican Republic, and the new king declared the Second Mexican Empire, and has vowed to bring Mexico into the modern day, whatever means necessary. A few years later, catastrophe has struck. Due to the government's new building projects, we have been forced to declare outright bankruptcy yet again, sending the already weakened economy spiraling. And as soon as the people began protesting, the government sanctioned for the National Guard to use lethal means to disperse the crowd. Though to some degree it has worked. In places like the Yucatan and the Rio Grande, areas already furious with the previous republic's invasion and reconquest have not declared outright independence, but National Guard and military units are siding with local rebels, forming autonomous states within the new empire. They are slowly weakening the central government's authority, and to make things even worse, rebellions and revolutions are breaking out in the north. The Second Mexican Empire looks like it won't survive the next few years. It will be lucky if it survives till the end of the decade.